Hello and welcome to this NCFE provider webinar on the approach to awarding for functional skills qualifications for summer 2021. My name is Charmaine Phelps and I'm one of the curriculum officers here at NCFE. I'm joined by Joanna Fairless, who is the head of assessment design and will be answering questions sent by attendees prior to the webinar. If you have any further questions following this session, we'll give you the details of customer support and our COVID hub in the final slide. The Ofqual Department for Education consultation outcome, alternative arrangements for the awards of VTQs and other general qualifications in 2021 sets out. Functional skills have on-demand, shorter assessments. Where these can be delivered in line with public health measures, including remotely, the department's policy position is that they should be permitted to continue to proceed. This is to ensure that students and other learners can continue to progress fairly and acknowledges that providers have been implementing protective measures and adapting assessments, such as moving to remote assessment. These qualifications are often taken on demand with more frequent external examination and assessment opportunities throughout the year, and we do not see a strong rationale for preventing these assessments from continuing where they can be delivered in line with public health guidelines. A number of awarding organisations have recently invested in remote assessment solutions for FSQs. Therefore, the department proposes that remote assessments should be taken by FSQ learners, where these assessments can continue and learners are able to access them. For students and other learners who are unable to access FSQ assessments, an alternative method of awarding these qualifications may be needed to ensure these learners can progress. Functional skills will therefore offer a teacher assessed grade tag option as a last resort, where a centre can demonstrate it is not possible to live test individual learners who are assessment ready for safety reasons. Adaptations to allow assessments to take place. We've put a number of measures in place to allow centres to continue to deliver functional skills assessments safely this summer. Our remote invigilation solution has been rigorously tested in a pilot to ensure the best possible service to you and your learners. The benefits of the approach are that it saves you time and resource. Our easy to set up at-home assessments can be undertaken by learners without you having to organise invigilation. Maximum flexibility for timing of assessments. Once booked, learners can take their assessment at any time over a 6-week window, anytime, any day. There is a safe and secure system offering 24/7 technical support during the assessment. Comprehensive centre and learner guidance, including webinars, a dedicated customer support team, and more. There's easy administration. Once booked and learners are briefed, you can leave the rest to us. It's quick to get started. You gain approval within 48 hours. It's cost effective with a market leading price. There's a super speedy results turnaround from 6 working days, subject to a successful video review of the exam. And if you'd like more information or you're interested in knowing more about it, you can complete the contact form on the remote invigilation page of our website. Our usual on-screen assessments are available, and we have also relaunched on-demand paper-based assessments for our legacy qualifications from the 29th of March. You can book your learners onto these assessments via the usual booking process in the NCFE portal. We are delighted to launch our brand new on-demand paper-based offer for our reformed functional skills qualifications from the 12th of April. More communication will be coming about this, and the portal will accept bookings in the usual way from that date. We are also continuing to permit remote assessment for the SLC. These can be completed with the use of video conferencing software to ensure you are able to supervise the assessment in line with the regulations. Learner eligibility. If you have a learner who is ready for the assessment and they're not able to access an assessment safely, then you must apply to NCFE through the eligibility for tag process for approval that the learner can receive a teacher assessed grade this summer. You must investigate all live testing and adaptation options before approaching us with an application for eligibility for a functional skills tag. You'll need to evidence how all options have been explored and exhausted for each individual learner. As live testing should be the primary method of awarding, and tags should only be requested when you can clearly demonstrate learners are assessment ready, unable to access an assessment safely, and as a last resort, you should not submit an application for an entire cohort. NCFE have created a web page that details the requirements that your learner must meet to be eligible for a tag. We provided as much support as possible to assist you in this process. You'll find this page by going to the COVID Hub from the NCFE website, opening the subject-specific information box, and then clicking through to the functional skills page. The support includes a support guide for learner eligibility, the 6 key principles of tags, a decision flowchart that will assist you in identifying if the learner is eligible, and a template form that's to be completed and submitted for each individual learner. Once you're satisfied that your learners meet the eligibility requirements, we provided a downloadable form that the centre needs to complete and send to fstag@ncfe.org.uk. The email address is given alongside the form. NCFE will then review your submission and respond within 5 working days to advise if your learner has been approved to be submitted for a teacher assessed grade. Only at this point will you be able to submit a tag for your learner through the portal. Any tag submissions that have not gone through eligibility will be rejected. On the downloadable form, you'll be asked to identify your learner details and make a submission for each individual assessment. For instance, if you wish to submit a learner for English, you will have to submit separate lines for each assessment, the reading, writing, and speaking and listening. You can add as many learners to the form that you believe meet the requirements. However, they will have to be submitted with responses unique to those individuals rather than a cohort submission. The application process will ask you 6 questions that you must respond to and be able to provide rationale and evidence for. The 6 questions are: is the learner assessment ready? Can the learner safely access an assessment in any format? Have you exhausted all possible adaptations that allow a learner to take an assessment? Can the assessment be delayed? Does the learner have sufficient evidence to support a tag? And would you be able to provide appropriate evidence upon request for all your responses? Should your response to any of these not be in line with eligibility requirements, then the form will notify you straight away. Centres should ensure that they have the evidence to back up their rationale, as this may be requested at a later date through our quality assurance processes. NCFE will then review the submission and respond to you within 5 working days with a decision. Should we approve your decision, you will then proceed to submit a tag. You must not submit for a tag without approval from this process. If a learner is approved for a teacher assessed grade, you should work on forming a body of evidence that forms the basis for the judgment. Recommended evidence includes, but is not limited to, completed sample or past paper taken as a mock test, including the conditions the mock was taken under, formative assessment results. This could be further supported by other evidence, which may include, but is not limited to, any other learner work towards the qualification, i.e. work they have independently undertaken in class or at home, learner work demonstrating the skills assessed by functional skills qualifications that has been completed in support of another qualification learning aim. While the use of past or sample paper is not mandated, we highly recommend the use of this material as a key part of any supporting evidence, as these tests have been produced by the awarding organisation and are therefore seen as a standardised source of evidence. Conditions for completion of the sample test will not be mandated, but the test used and the mark scheme applied must be an awarding organisation produced sample practice or past paper made available by us for this purpose. We provide clear guidance on the pass marks within the sample assessment materials to enable accurate assessment that will reflect the standards within the live assessments. While conditions for collating evidence are not mandated, centres will need to consider the conditions through which this evidence is gathered and should implement measures to ensure they are confident that the evidence is authentic to the learner, the evidence is reliable and comparable to those going through live testing. Centres must therefore record the conditions under which the evidence has been produced, and where evidence has been gathered without control, they should include other supporting evidence to corroborate this to provide reassurances of the learner's overall ability to achieve the qualification and progress. The teacher should also provide an accompanying commentary to state why the evidence is sufficient to support the grade they assign. They should use the past descriptors for the relevant functional skills qualification to support their decision. This, along with the proof of eligibility and approval from NCFE, should be stored within the centre and presented for quality assurance. This must be produced per learner. Our quality assurance process will follow 6 stages. First, each centre to produce a teacher-assessed grade tag strategy. Following confirmation of the VCRF, Vocational Contingency Regulatory Framework, we'll shortly send out a communication which will contain our quality assurance policy for summer 2021, and we'll ask that you complete a simple form to tell us about your teacher-assessed grading strategy should you wish to use this. This needs to be approved by NCFE before you can begin the process of deciding tags. The form asks centres to answer a series of questions to gain clarification and confidence in the way in which you will prepare, collate evidence for, and submit teacher-assessed grades to us, including, for example, how you will conduct internal quality assurance. We have aligned to other awarding organisations as far as possible and appreciate that for those centres who also offer GCSEs and A-levels, you will have produced a formal policy, which can be used for NCFE qualifications as well, where relevant. Step 2, a focused review of centres' teacher-assessed grading strategy. Once you have submitted your teacher-assessed grading strategy to us, we'll review it against our and Ofqual's requirements. We'll provide centres with feedback and additional guidance within 5 working days to ensure that your approach is compliant. You should not submit teacher-assessed grades to us until we have confirmed that we have approved your strategy. Step 3, EQA activity, advice and support to centres. EQA activity will continue largely as planned through the spring and summer term, with EQAs supporting, advising and challenging centres on your approach to and the evidence you are preparing to support. Teacher-assessed grades before and after submission to us. We have invested in additional EQA resource to ensure that centres can access the support that you need to prepare valid teacher-assessed grades for your learners. Step 4, centre submission of grades to NCFE. We're currently making changes to our portal that will enable you to submit teacher-assessed grades to us. Unlike last year, you'll be able to submit grades through our main portal rather than a separate one. The submission of grades during the tag window will also include those that are mid-flight learner, fail or not yet achieved. You should not submit teacher-assessed grades to us until we confirm that you are able to do so, which we will do so via our weekly newsletter and other communication channels. Step 5, post-teacher assessed grade submission EQA review. In addition, our external quality assurance team will also complete risk-based reviews of grades submitted by centres. As a result of these desk-based reviews, we may require further information or engagement with you before confirming learner results. As ever, we'll reserve the right to conduct formal investigations where we're concerned about a given centre's practice and may hold results whilst we do so. We'll provide more information on this process in due course. And finally, step 6, continued EQA activity into 2021-2022. As usual, centres should retain the evidence that you've collated to underpin each of the teacher assessed grades that you submit to us this year. This evidence may be required as part of EQA sampling during 2021-22. Where we identify concerns, we continue to reserve the right to conduct formal investigations and to withdraw certifications if necessary. Please refer to our malpractice policy for more information. Results will continue to be released through the usual process where a learner accesses an assessment. The usual results turnaround times apply of 6 working days from the date the learner completes their assessment. Where a learner is approved for a teacher assessed grade, the results will be issued following the EQA review of the evidence. These will be released on demand and will not be held to a specific results day. Now we'll turn to questions that have been sent to us by attendees. The first one, what does our strategy statement need to look like?
So as Charmaine said earlier in the webinar, we will be releasing our quality assurance policy in very soon, and that will detail the approach for this summer and will have detailed information on the requirements for the centre strategy. We will also be releasing a webinar on the EQA process, which will contain details on the policy, but at a high level, the policy will need to set out your approach to the awarding of teacher assessed grades this summer, and it will need to include an outline of the roles and responsibilities of the individuals in your centre, detail of training, support and guidance which will be provided to support the delivery of the teacher assessed grades process within your centre, detail of the approach to the determination of teacher assessed grades, and that will need to include consideration of the evidence you'll use to arrive at a grade, details of what internal quality assurance processes you will have in place, details of the internal appeals procedure you'll have in place to support learners within your centre, and also details of the special considerations procedures and arrangements that you'll have to account for disruption and differential learning loss.
What does a typical evidence consist of for TAG? Tutors want to know this.
So the recommended evidence includes, but is not limited to, completed sample assessment papers, and they can be taken as a mock test, and formative assessment results. So that can be awarding organisation devised assessment, or it can be centre devised. We highly recommend the use of sample assessment materials from the awarding organisation if these have been designed to assess the achievement in the context of the qualification, but you can supplement them with assessments you've designed yourself, but also any other learner work towards the qualification, which they may have done independently in class or at home, and also any learner work which demonstrates the skills assessed by the functional skills qualifications that you feel demonstrates their achievement of the relevant criteria.
Can speaking, listening and communication be assessed by teacher assessed grade TAG?
Yes, it can. We need to make sure that we're staying aligned to the department's policy as far as possible. So all measures should be taken to make sure a learner can sit the assessment safely as far as possible. If, however, that isn't going to be possible and the learner meets the eligibility criteria, then you may request approval from NCFE. The eligibility criteria and approval process apply to all assessments within the functional skills suite.
What notice period is required to book a paper-based assessment when they go to on-demand?
So the notice period is 10 working days required to make a booking within the NCFE portal, but we also have a fast track service where you can make a booking within 5 working days, but fees apply to that.
We've had a centre that said their learners are doing entry-level functional skills qualifications, and some are also doing bite-sized awards and certificates, and some of them have special educational needs and are having issues attending due to shielding and problems with technology and working from home. Will they be allowed to use tags?
Yes, for the functional skills qualifications, they will need to follow the approval process and use all of the evidence of eligibility in order to apply. For the bite-sized qualifications, they're actually in scope for teacher assessed grades, so they don't need approval in advance, and they can be completed following all the guidance that's currently available on NCFE's website.
If we've already used all the available NCFE past papers in revision sessions, can we use other assessment papers from other awarding organisations or centre designed?
Yes, absolutely. But if that was the case and you had carried out a significant number of practice assessments, mock assessments, I would encourage you to consider the body of evidence you already have available, because it may be that you already have sufficient evidence to generate a teacher assessed grade, and in all cases the first stage of generating the grade is looking at the evidence you have available and identifying any gaps. So if you already have a body of evidence, I would encourage you to look at that first before you start considering what additional assessment you need to do.
Can we use tags for learners who should have sat exams in January or February?
Potentially, yes. As in all cases, the first stage needs to be to follow the department's policy. So if a learner has sat an assessment and not yet achieved and they need to resit, or if a learner had an assessment booked and wasn't able to access it because of the restrictions, then the first action should be to try and rebook that assessment. If that becomes impossible and the learner isn't able to access an assessment safely, then you would need to review the eligibility criteria and potentially make an application for that learner.
Thanks, Joanna.
No problem.
So the last one, where can we access past NCFE papers and exemplar materials? So I'll show you that on the screen. They're available on the functional skills pages of Qual Hub. So from the Qual Hub homepage, if you go down to Reform Functional Skills and click there, that will take you to a page that lists all of the individual qualifications. If you click into the qualification that you would like to find assessment or exemplar materials for, and scroll down the page until you find these tabs. And if you click on the assessment materials tabs, that will take you to the past papers. So for maths, certainly, we've got past papers. For English, there's past papers. There's the learner observation and achievement record, and there's exemplar materials and also guidance for standardization for the SLC. For legacy qualifications or ICT, rather than going to the reformed functional skills page from Qual Hub, if you go to the legacy functional skills page, and from there, there is a tab where you can see past papers. So for ICT in particular, rather than going to the individual qualification and looking for the past papers, if you go to the legacy functional skills homepage and scroll down, and you'll find past papers and other resources there. You'll find further information and support on our dedicated COVID hub on our NCFE website. And for further questions or queries, please contact customer support by email or by calling 0191 239 8000. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for your time today, and on behalf of everyone here at NCFE, stay safe and take care.